Hey guys, what's going on? Today is a full tutorial on how to install HydroTurf on your boat deck. We're going to do it for all these lids right now, so you'll see how we cut it strategically, freehand, without any templates, and how easy it is. And this will apply for any boat deck, no matter how simple or complex it is. We're going to go ahead and prep the surface. It's already been painted, primered. We're going to go ahead and square this off. We have Nate here with us, who's like, all he does is turf boats like this, and so he shows us a lot of tricks of the trade. First off, he starts by making an absolute square of the actual piece. He says sometimes they don't come completely square, and if you just assume that they're square and you put them on like that, it'll throw your entire line off. So he goes ahead and he squares off the entire edge, taking about an inch off the top, right before rolling it up and going ahead and putting it on top of the boat. Nate also notes that there's a smooth edge and a rough edge on the front and back of each piece, and that's how you know which way to line each piece of turf. If you mix and match vice versa backwards, he says that it'll actually show in the lines of the design and it'll glare and you'll notice. So just FYI on that. Right now he's just cutting rough estimates, just cutting pieces out to have a guesstimate, because we're kind of lining it up with the hatches. So by doing that, he can feasibly tell where the middle line is. Then we take off part of the paper while somebody else sits on the other end, so the turf will not move when we flush it up here to the bow piece. Then as we slowly work it back, then we take off the rest of the adhesive backing paper. The adhesive is pretty flexible. You can use it and reposition it. It's just when it's set there for a while or when it's in the sun, that's it. It's never gonna like shift again. So the adhesive on the HydroTurf is pretty forgiving, unlike this gator skins. If you followed this channel for a while, you know, we're no stranger to gator skins. We love this stuff. We're actually going to use this to line the walls. This has a pretty robust 3M backing, so we're just going to go ahead and cut a piece. I call it like a safety piece, and I just strip off that little piece and use that to anchor it, making sure everything else is going to fit flush if I take off the rest of the tape. So I take off the rest of the tape, that's it for this stuff. It touches the aluminum, that's it, it's done. It's going to be really seriously hard to pull it off, and if you do get it off, the adhesive just isn't the same. So we want to make just one pull, one adhesion, one area there. You have a little bit of wiggle room, but once you press on the 3M backing, that's pretty much it. I did cut an extra little bit just so I could cheat it if I needed to, and voila. Then we have a section here that just outlines the little step-in area before we lay the rest of the turf over. It would be very bad if it was low. Oh yeah, look at that. Alright, there. How we lined this up perfectly is we just laid it over the hatches. We followed the hatch lines right there where the lids are, and that's where we cut. We just made sure there was a little extra so we could have a little margin for error. But if you look at the lines, they perfectly match the index of where we're cutting. We are cutting inside the tray itself, against the tray lid, and then directly against the hatch lid, up and down each time. So you're making two cuts, and then once those two cuts are made, you're just pulling out the strip. It's pretty easy, but what's difficult is getting the line straight all the way down. So some people use templates, some people use a ruler and then cut straight down to make sure there's no odd cut. But if you just kind of practice a little bit, which you should be getting a few extra sheets. If you think your boat's going to take a surface area of 3 to 4 sheets, you should be getting 5 to 6 sheets. You should have a little extra. That way it's not so nerve-wracking. If you mess up, you can pull the piece off, you can put another piece on. It's totally worth it to get the extra sheet to make sure you're good. At least one extra, more than you think you're going to need. You want the initial surface area of the turf to cover as many hatches as possible without having to cut any extra ones out. That way, it for the most part perfectly lines up with your entire deck. And you cut out the middle for the tray. There's obviously the matter of the hinge, and then there's this thing, which is maybe the trickiest part to cut out. And there's stuff that's really easy like this, but it's not hard to use. The bigger issue is this seam right there where the hinge actually is, the hinge to the hatch. You got to cut seamlessly down one side and then follow it and cut it down to the other, and then pull it right out like so, and then kind of smush it down in there. And if it looks a little funky, you can go over it again really tactfully. So we found out that these smaller like utility knives work the best. And so these are just some cheap ones from Harbor Freight, or you know, the ones you get in bulk for like $1. They're like right there on the counter as you're checking out. You're like, oh, I need a utility knife, so you buy these. These are all right. You'd swear you wouldn't think that foam would dull a blade so fast, but I swear foam dulls blades quickly. You gotta switch through them, so get like 9 or 10 of these things, like $10 worth of $1 little utility knives, and just go to town. Later on, we got these Husky ones with replaceable blades, and it actually cut a lot better than these did. We still got the job done for a while until we got those. We made like a Home Depot run, and it turned out much better. So definitely just have a really nice smaller utility knife with replaceable blades. Switch them out as often as you need, and just repeat this step. Key tip here when we are talking about trying to get the perfect edge on the turf. Right now we're sticking that just piece of metal in there because we don't want to cut against the hull and scrape the paint job. But this is a bigger thing. When it's like this and it's 90-degree angle like that, use the blade flat. How Nate is cutting it right now, because when you put it down, then it will fit flat. If you cut it at a diagonal or vertical line, you will come up short and it will look terrible, or it'll look angled and it won't fit flush like this. You can do a lot more like this and cheat it in and smush it in there, because there is a little bit of wiggle room. After all, it is foam and it does compress. So you do have a little bit more room than what people would lead you to believe.
This one's being a fucking cocksucker. Man.
Hug it real tight because it'll want to derail. Yeah. It loves to derail and make you look stupid.
Hey, how many more water in this one?
Mm-hmm. So I got the tubes on it.
I mean, at least you know.
After everything is lined up, it seems the actual turf on the hatches themselves is much easier to do once everything else is in place. That way you don't kind of mess it up. There's a lot of actual, static stationary deck surface on this boat to include spots where the hatches are, so it's just a little easier to do it with Nate's dry hatches the way they were made. But no matter how much turf you have, you're eventually going to have to overlap pieces together to make it, pull this whole thing off. So how you do that is right here we have one piece overlapping the other. We make a straight cut right over the overlap, pull the top piece off, go underneath, pull that bottom cut piece off, and the line you cut with the utility knife should mirror and complement the other one, so you can seam it up just like that. And that is the better way to do it. Looks pretty darn good, right? Then after that, we just cut the excess off.
Alright, hold it up, Frank.
Ruthlessness.
Hold it up.
Huh?
Brian has done this before.
Brian has
Work-
laid some
work
stuff
the
for
bad
sure.
side of the hinge. We're doing the seam first, right? I'm just trying to get this area away from the light. If you come in like here and loop and follow it.
As we finally complete the turf job and it all comes to a close, we try to go for the pictures. It turns out the owner of this boat ordered white latches. I don't really know if he's gonna like how that looks against the turf. It kind of really just shows, but it's also kind of dope. But what's more important is this turf job came out more or less flawless. It's done at PIEDMONT Custom Fab out of Bethlehem, Georgia. Thank you for letting us come down there and help you there, Frankie. Appreciate it. See you next time when we're down there. And for all of you, we hope this tutorial helps you. Thank you much for taking the time to come in here and view this video. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you have any questions, because we have more turf projects and we can solve and answer those questions in the next vid. I'll see you out there, tiny boaters, pro staffers, patrons, VIPs, channel members. Thank you all. Keep grinding.